Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my wife has scammed multiple people on Facebook and she lied to me about it. So about a week ago, I got this Facebook message from some lady saying that my wife scammed her out of some money shipping baby clothes. I went to my wife about it before talking to the lady, and my wife said, "I've never seen this lady in my whole life. She's just trying to get you to send her $30. She then went on to block the lady, and that was that. Well, this morning I got a message request from a different lady saying how my wife scammed her also out of $120, and she sent me screenshots of her and my wife's conversation and transactions. I unblocked the other lady, and she also sent me conversations and transactions. And apparently there are others as well. So I now have 3 ladies in my DMs with proof that my wife scammed them out of money, lied to them about having a miscarriage, and said that she was on bed rest and couldn't. She's at work as a bartender right now. She's not on bed rest. The thing that irks me the most is how quick she was to lie to me and block the lady. It just didn't feel right, but I thought, oh well, she wouldn't lie to me about something like this. Now I'm just sitting here wondering how much more she's lied to me about, and I don't feel like I can even trust her anymore. My wife doesn't know that I have all of this information. Any idea what I should do next? Her reaction is a bit sus. She just said, "I've never seen her before. She's trying to get money from you?" I'd be like, what? Who is this? Why did they think that? Give me their details so I can clear this up. I'd put a hold on my credit and check all of my accounts, to be honest. If it turns out she's really doing this, I'd find a divorce attorney. If these people are genuine victims and they found you, they can also find friends, family, and employers. OP. Her reaction was what drove me to believe these people. Took my phone and blocked this lady and denied. But from the messages this lady had with my wife, I fully believe that my wife has been scamming people. And on top, she lied to them. Said that I had shipped their packages, lied and said she had a miscarriage and had to be bedridden, and basically just tried to play the victim the entire time when she had no intentions of giving this lady her stuff. She even sold her some clothing that she had already given to somebody else. And how quick she was to block the lady is what I found suspicious, but I didn't do anything because I believed her. Apparently, the original lady made a post on some mom's group Facebook page, and that's how they all found me. Plus, like a week ago, my wife just randomly deleted her Facebook account, and it all lines up perfectly for when the original lady threatened to make a public post about my wife. They paid her on a PayPal that isn't her actual PayPal. She's at work right now, but I'm going to try to do more digging into this later. But basically, that whole Facebook group has my wife on a no-sell list because this isn't the first time this has happened apparently. The original lady who contacted me invited me and showed me the public post that she made shaming my wife for what she did. Talk to her about why she's doing it and what else she's lied about. She should be worried about the police too. OP. I don't think she'll be honest at this point. I was invited to the Facebook group my wife sold all of this stuff in, and they have a whole 3 posts talking about how she's on a ban list and she's cheated other people out of their money too. Update. I confronted my wife with all of the evidence that she's absolutely guilty of doing this, including the money trail, and I had my phone recording everything and a hidden security camera going to watch it all, and she still denied it. And then told me that I was a joke of a husband for not believing her in this whole ordeal. And she continued to go off on me for 45 minutes and just say awful things. Anytime I would bring up a point, she would just dismiss it and continue to gaslight me. So I'm taking my 2-year-old with me, and we're going to my buddy's house for the rest of the week. My husband's female best friend is pregnant, and she says that it's his. My husband came home around 6 a.m. and threw his keys on the side and went upstairs without saying anything to me. I thought this was a little rude, and I walked up after him, telling him that we need to talk, but he said he was tired and needed to sleep, which just made me angry because I was serious. I told him halfway up the stairs that I knew about him and Laura, to which he then looked at me confused. I explained my side and the text and what it seemed like, and he ended up laughing in my face. This filled me up with so much petty rage because I've had enough of being walked on, so I pushed past him into our room and I got a suitcase from under the bed and started to pack his stuff for him. He started shouting and saying really horrible things, but I didn't hear most of it because I was crying uncontrollably and busy ramming every item of clothing he owned. Most of it didn't fit, but he could come back and collect the rest later. One insult that stood out to me was, "Crazy jerk!" And this is where I snapped, and I said some horrible things too. I know I called him a bad husband, but in more of a rude tone. He ended up leaving with his suitcase I packed and a plastic bag after I said I would get my dad involved if he didn't leave. Afterwards, I took a recommended comment and I told my family everything. My brother didn't care, but my father was so angry there might have been steam coming from the phone after the call. I haven't heard from my soon-to-be ex-husband, but his response to my question was complete disrespect, and I wasn't able to hold it in for much longer. I'm sure what I did was a complete overreaction until I texted Laura's mother since I said I would do that. She didn't reply until 11 a.m., but basically what happened is that she only met my husband 2 years ago, which I'm guessing was during his constant overtime. This made me so angry that I texted Laura something petty, which I don't regret. I hadn't replied to her yet, so I told her that she can have him, and I can't wait till the same thing happens to her and she gets cheated on. She hasn't replied yet or seen it. I've screenshotted everything she said and the picture, and I'll be contacting a lawyer later on. Nothing else has really happened, and if it does, I'll update. Thanks, everyone. Update. Husband messaged and I ignored it, and Laura left me on read. Husband messaged that he's sorry and wants to come home and needs to talk about Laura's message. Not sure what he's going to say about it, but I'm going to message him back to meet me somewhere else because I don't want him in my house right now. Not sure what he's going to say, but I'm ready for the lies and gaslighting. Edit. I'm really disappointed in Reddit. I thought this could be a post to vent and have men and women help and give advice and listen to me so I can finally feel like I'm being heard. And I'm getting a lot of crappy comments and people spamming me saying I'm scummy for lying and that they'll find me. If you're one of those people, please leave me alone. Yes, I have left out some information and I'm not updating immediately, but I've been so tired these past 2 days and I really don't have the ability nor resistance to keep typing up massive updates. I took some time off of work to figure stuff out, but I'm not looking forward to the amount piled up from my missed days. Love you all and I wish you all the best, especially for the people that went through what I'm going through right now. Am I the jerk for dismissing my rude daughter's feelings? Am I out of line? I'm female 45 and my daughter is 18. Recently, I just lost my aunt. My daughter has always been a closed-off and reserved person. However, she's a little immature when she doesn't get what she wants and is very snide and in your face sometimes during these occasions. When my aunt passed, my sister came over and has been here ever since, for about 4 weeks now, when we arranged the funeral and reception. My daughter did not cry or look upset at all, even though she'd sometimes go to look after her great-aunt on the days her great-uncle needed to go out, since she was bedbound and completely paralyzed and unable to speak. You'd expect some sort of reaction, right? But she had none. She'd avoid her great-aunt a lot, and she never even talked to me about her. For this reason, I assumed she was just detached, as a lot of kids usually are, and left her alone. However, since her aunt came to stay with us and brought her 3 kids, she's been very bratty and complains when she has to clean up after them because they're quite spoiled. She's like this every time they come to stay because my sister is quite an unhygienic person and she and her kids have had lice for years. She didn't say anything to them since my aunt is grieving, so she hides in her room for the whole day because she feels stuffy and repulsed, always asking me when will they leave. I understand why she feels this way. I don't like how the kids and my sister crowd my home and they don't clean up after themselves. But they're family, and we're grieving, even if she's not. She even hated the reception, not serving the guests, family and family friends, and looked annoyed when I told her so. And she said she just wanted to sit there. It was very embarrassing for me. All she needed to do was hand out water. I told her not to be so mean, as they're family and her aunt is grieving. But she, being immature, narrowed her eyes at me and told me she feels trapped in this house, wanting space before she went back to her room. Even when I ask her to come downstairs and spend time with me. She's usually very sweet, smart and mature, even emotionally, and very perceptive, but for the past few weeks, she's been more reclusive and bratty than usual, even more so than other times when her aunt has been around. Am I right in being dismissive of her attitude and feelings? It seems to me, as of recently, there's been a bad change in her. Even if she doesn't care about her great-aunt passing, someone who has taken care of her before developing this illness and who she's known since she was young, she should at least think of her aunt's needs. Honestly, I'm quite annoyed. My mother told me I should just leave her alone to herself, but she needs to be kinder. Edit. I admit that tradition has influenced a lot of my decisions and my own personality, and that has in turn affected my daughter as much as I ignored it. I'll be having a long discussion with my sister about her problems, trying to sort out her hygiene as well, and making her go back home, and giving my daughter a much-needed apology. I don't want to lose her, as many of you had pointed out, that the longer I continue on this route, the higher the likelihood she'll cut me off. I'll talk to her, and I'll try to help her out however she needs me to. Unfortunately, I'm not in America, but I have called the social services on my sister before, and they closed the case after a very short investigation. I will not be calling them again due to their terrible service, but I will force my sister to get her act together by completely barring her from my house until she takes my advice. Only until she has begun to take care of her own kids will I allow her near my own. I will also be trying my best to earn my daughter's forgiveness. You're the jerk. It isn't your daughter's job to be an unpaid maid to a family so unhygienic they carry lice. That's absolutely repulsive and places your entire household at risk. And obviously, it isn't just their grief if this is how they live. I wouldn't want to be around that level of illness or neglect either. Why don't you try cleaning up after them and get lice and see how you like it? And also, who likes a funeral reception? What kind of demented Better Homes and Gardens party planet are you living on? Stop alienating your daughter for no reason because family is no excuse for what you describe. You're the jerk. I ignored my husband so much that he went away without telling me. I, Carla, 30, am 6 months pregnant with mine and my husband's, Harry, 31, first baby. During this pregnancy, I've been very exhausted every day and would usually come home from work and go to bed an hour later. Then I'd wake up at midnight and reheat whatever Harry had made us for dinner. For context, I've been part of a huge work project that's been going on for months, and I've been extremely overworked. On top of this, my husband doesn't have a job at this moment and isn't looking for one unless I remind him to. I've been working overtime to get as much money as I can before maternity leave. Our anniversary was on the 6th of August, and I'd asked him if we could have a romantic dinner at home and then snuggle up to watch TV under a warm blanket. I thought it was a wonderful idea since I was too tired to go out, and because I knew that Harry was doing most, if not all, of the household chores. However, he seemed a little annoyed when he agreed, but I thought nothing of it. The next morning, Harry seemed quite cold towards me and barely looked me in the eyes. Once I got home from work, he wasn't there. But that was normal since he could have been out with friends or at an interview, and so I went to sleep. I woke up at 11 that night to see that I was still alone in the house, so I checked my phone. I had about 8 missed calls from Harry and a long text. I'm summarizing, but the text read, "I understand how tired you are because of this pregnancy and you having to work extra hours most days, but I'm over being ignored every day and having a 5-minute conversation with you every so often. You expect me to do all the housework and plan our boring anniversary alone. I'm really annoyed, so I'm staying at a friend's tonight. Text me when you see this." Of course, I called and texted him about being sorry and wanting to talk, but I never got an answer. In the morning, I called my boss about having a day off and spent most of it waiting for Harry and planning my apology. However, when he came home, he silently handed me a rose and a card saying that he loves me but needs a few days away from me to figure out what he's going to say and do. Then, those days became a week. This part happened on the 13th, 8 days later. I messaged him every day and he would constantly say he needed one more day or just another night at his friend's to figure all of this out. But on the 13th, I decided to go to his friend's house who he was staying with to confront him. So I drove over, nearly 30 minutes away, and banged on the door so hard that I could hear it echo from the inside. By this point, I'd realized that I should have put in more effort to our relationship, but he also should have talked to me about this instead of just running away. Harry's friend came to the door and was confused but pleased to see me. He seemed a little on edge as I talked to him, and he had to break the silence every so often with comments about my pregnancy and how he couldn't wait to meet the baby. Finally, we stopped talking, and I practically demanded to see Harry, saying that I wanted to apologize, but also explain how childish he was being by hiding from me. The thing that I found absolutely hilarious, but actually not at all, was that his friend said that Harry wasn't there and had left for Ireland on the 9th. Ireland! To say I was absolutely furious and extremely confused would be such an understatement. His friend invited me in, and we sat down to talk. Turns out that Harry had told his friend of our problems and had come up with the solution of going on a holiday as a couple to sort everything out and learn to love each other again, in Harry's words. So of course, his friend thought this was a lovely idea and helped him book the flight on the evening of the 5th, the first time he had stayed at his friend's house. Since it was a last-minute booking, Harry's friend had stayed up with him for quite a while before they found a flight who was taking a few more passengers due to canceled tickets. His friend then explained how he had been confused when I arrived at the door but didn't want to say anything about the holiday in case it had ended early due to us arguing. Harry's return ticket is booked for the 20th of August. I'm just so angry and quite heartbroken, to be honest. I messaged him the moment his friend had finished talking, and Harry only responded an hour ago with nothing more than a "had to figure things out, sorry." So now I'm home alone again and trying to figure out what I'm going to do or say when he gets home. Anyway, thanks for reading about how my life is going. Side note, I'm from the UK, so Ireland isn't as far as people think since I'm not American, but it still is far. Other side note, a question that keeps repeating is, where did he get the money from without you noticing? So I'll go ahead and explain that. He has a bank account with his money from when he worked as a teenager and a little into his 20s before we met. and a few years ago, we agreed not to touch that money and add to it every so often. It was a backup savings account, so I'm assuming that he took the money from there since it wasn't from the joint account. Edit, 6 hours later. I knew this post would get attention, but I assumed it would only be a little. I've never used Reddit before, but I've seen it on TikTok a few times, so I thought posts only become popular on there. I was upset when I posted this and didn't think about how I'd handle all of the judgments and conspiracies once I'd calmed down. I appreciate the hard truths, empathy, and/or advice given to me here, but I'm not divorcing him, changing the locks, or calling a lawyer or anything like that. Update. It's the 17th now. I've had a longer time to think. I'm not deciding anything until our talk, but I definitely won't be staying in my home with him after this. I can't trust him to not run away again. I'll talk more about this on my actual update, but I've gained some self-respect, and I'm realizing that he's being the jerk. I talked to my mom, and she's happy for me to move in with her on the 21st, and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. How many tickets did he book? Is he alone? OP. 2 tickets as far as his friend knows, and I don't know who he took with him, but I'd like to assume it's a different friend or a relative, or that it just wasn't used. Guess I'd be waiting at the airport with a sign with his name on it. Just stand there casually and tell him that you're his ride. Imagine if the affair partner doesn't know that he's married and his wife is pregnant. She's gonna be shocked when she sees you. Yeah, either he went with a girlfriend who gets to meet the pregnant wife, or he went alone because he was super sad and seeing her there waiting for him might be a good way to get started on repairing their Yeah, sure, he totally went alone, didn't he? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Harry? Please let us know. Harry should have studied harder at Hogwarts. He's really not doing this life thing right. You're upset that I'm the top performer? Then you get yourself a bare minimum employee. For background, my jobs have always been geared towards data entry, as that's what I'm best at. I've always typed over 120 words per minute, and I love finding new keyboard shortcuts to save me time and just be more efficient overall. Not a brag, trust me. Because of this skill, I've always excelled in prior roles that utilized it. That is, until my current career. I've been with this company for almost 3 months now. As with a lot of data entry jobs, this one has weekly productivity that you must meet. By week 2, I was meeting productivity once I grasped the role. This fueled me to try and get even faster. I learned the programs I was to be using and used simple keyboard shortcuts to toggle between programs, close them, used Excel formulas, etc. You get the idea. If there's a way to save time, I'll find it. We got the team productivity email yesterday, and I see that I tripled what's expected of a single employee in an entire week. My numbers skyrocketed to levels that haven't been reached before. Now, here's the really fun part. Rather than getting any sort of praise, this company has felt anti-praise since I started, or being asked how I did it, I got an email from management stating my numbers are concerning and that they're essentially opening up an investigation to see if I cheated somehow. I even received a screenshot of others' numbers in one specific area with management stating it's impossible to have that much of a lead over those who have been here for years. My numbers were in the 800s, while the second highest was 300 in a week. Today, my boss calls me and says she's been spending the day checking my work, and so far everything's been accurate. Mind you, this investigation didn't start with her. She was just asked to check my work and was reporting what she had found. But it's all accurate. She says I can continue with what I'm doing since she found no problems. Now, I learned quickly that this isn't the type of place to be praised. There's zero incentive for anyone to go above and beyond if it's just going to be questioned. Now, to clarify, I fully understand that if something seems off, a company is going to want to check and ensure I'm understanding the work and entering it properly, especially with a new employee. But to email me stating it's concerning and impossible prior to even checking my work is where I have the issue. They shouldn't even have told me that they had to look into it. They were told my numbers were accurate, and there has been radio silence since. No apology, no praise, no how did you do it, in hopes that I can show the rest of my team so we can get caught up one day. So with what little knowledge of Excel I had, I made a spreadsheet that tallies my accounts as I go, so I can pace myself, and I'm now alerted as soon as I meet the goal so that I can stop working without going over. I did add just a tiny bit more wiggle room to my spreadsheet as to not accidentally go under productivity to where they would have reason to use corrective action, but just ever so slightly above the bare minimum. If they're going to treat me like a bare minimum employee, they're going to get a bare minimum employee. Edit. I'm very much looking for new employment, and I'm open to any suggestions for remote work if you have leads on a company that will utilize and appreciate the skills I have to offer, located in the US. Am I the jerk for expecting my very rich sister to pitch in on my wedding after she said she would? I'm female 35. My mother married my stepdad when I was 17, He had a daughter from a previous marriage, Ellie, who's 29. We were never close because when they moved in with us, Ellie was super clingy, would always follow me around and basically stalk me in my own house. Your typical know-it-all, barely left the house, so basically had zero friends that weren't online. So Ellie managed to graduate early and get into a really good college on scholarships, then got a master's there as well. She's in engineering, and her college is apparently one of the best ones for engineering. So straight after graduating, she was earning a crazy amount. She's been rubbing this in my face ever since she got the acceptance letter. When she was home, she was always wearing the university hoodie, always talking about what she's doing at college, sending videos of robots and crap into the family group chat. Now that she's earning so much, it's things like her paying off our parents' car loans for Christmas or getting extravagant gifts for everyone. We had a few fights about it, but we always made up. Why were you fighting her about it? So now on to this year. I got engaged last year in February to my fiance, who's 32. I asked my sister if she would pitch in, and she said she would help out. Knowing she had the money, I got to plan my dream wedding. I was so excited about planning our big day. That was until I showed her the plans and she pulled the rug from beneath my feet. She asks me how I'm paying for it. My husband and I didn't go to college, so we're not high earners, and I reminded her that she said she would help. She's now saying that she won't help pay for it, and she will at the absolute most pay for my dress. I told her it's unfair of her to lie to me and only tell me after planning everything that she isn't actually going to help. She blew up at me over us not even being close in the past and blaming me for it. It takes two people to bond. But she claims everything is my fault. We argued for a bit, and now she's not even paying for my dress. All the wedding planning I've done has been for nothing now. My parents are split, with my mom saying Ellie needs to honor her word and let me have the wedding I planned, and we all pitch in what we can afford. My stepdad is angry I asked her in the first place and dug up some old arguments from when I was 17. Am I the jerk for expecting her to do what she said? You're the jerk. Someone saying they'll help with a wedding is in no way indicating that they'll pay for the whole thing. Just because she has money doesn't mean you're entitled to it, and when dealing with wedding budgets, you should always find out what people are actually willing to spend and not count on the money until it's in your hand. You and your mother are delusional thinking Ellie ever agreed to, or should have to, pay for your wedding. You're the jerk. She's your younger stepsister you basically had no use for and then seemed to be jealous of. Apparently, she did say she'd help, and offering to buy your dress is helping. That's generous help, I'd say, all things considered. I don't see where she signed on to pay for whatever else you chose to set up. You're not entitled to her wealth. She's earned it, and it's 100% hers. It's nice that she's chosen to share some of it with family at times, but she owes you nothing. Your thinking is absurd. Have the wedding you can afford and be happy with it. Am I the jerk for not sharing my inheritance with the rest of my family? My family situation is messy. I, 25 female, was engaged 4 years ago to my high school sweetheart. My fiance cheated on me with my sister, who's 28. We had never had a good relationship, even as kids, so after I found out, I went scorched earth, both of them. She was in love with my fiance, but he dumped her within 2 weeks and was back trying to get me to forgive him. I didn't. My parents were initially on my side, but my sister had a nervous breakdown after she was dumped and was hospitalized, so they changed their tune to, "It's over now and you can't be mad forever." I dumped them too and went on to grad school on the other side of the country. My grandfather was livid with the whole thing, disowned my sister, and chewed out my parents. Sometimes it felt like he was the only one who was on my side and understood. I was able to get my job to let me work remotely and move back home to take care of him when he got sick last fall, and I was heartbroken when he passed a few months ago. I had been in limited contact with my parents since I came back, mostly because I didn't want to be an obstacle to my dad seeing my grandfather, but with the understanding that any discussion of my sister or what happened would end that. It turns out that my grandfather left me virtually everything. He left enough for my father to cover a debt and some token stuff for a couple of other relatives, but he wrote letters for everyone and did a videotape with his attorney explaining what his intentions were. I knew that he had done well for himself, but he lived a pretty simple lifestyle, so I didn't realize how much money and assets he really had. I would give it all up to have my pawpaw back, but even after taxes, it's set for life money. My parents are pretty mad about it. One of the reasons stated for cutting them out was how disappointed my grandfather was with how they had treated me growing up versus my sister and over the fiancé debacle. There were other reasons, but that's what they're fixated on. The will is pretty airtight apparently, so my parents want me to do the right thing and share it equally between me, them, and my sister. Their argument is that I don't need it. I make more than both of them combined, and this would allow them to retire. My sister is not doing great and can't hold a job, so this would ensure she has something for when my parents pass. I don't want to. My grandfather's wishes were crystal clear, and also I kind of don't feel like doing more than the minimum for any of them. They've been telling me that I'm being vindictive because of a mistake years ago. I can't deny that there might be a little vindictiveness there. I don't want them to suffer necessarily, but I also don't feel like they deserve my help. Not the jerk. I'm so sorry your pawpaw is gone. He sounds very loving and interesting by the way you speak about him here. That said, cut contact with them and walk away. That's what he would have wanted, and he granted you the means to do so. Walk tall. You've earned this. Not the jerk. Don't share money with your truly terrible family. They don't deserve it. Take a nice long vacation and cut them off completely. My daughter expects me to pay for her boyfriend's meal. I'm a mother of a 24-year-old daughter, Christine. Christine moved back to our hometown after obtaining her college degree and met her current boyfriend, Simon, who's 30. I'm not a big fan of Simon, but we're civil enough to be around each other. The other day, I called Christine to invite her for lunch, and she agreed to come. Unbeknownst to me, she brought Simon with her. I was slightly bothered, but only since I was looking for an ordinary mother and daughter lunch to catch up with stuff. I welcomed her and Simon, and as far as ordering food, I ordered the usual for Christine, but Simon went over the menu and picked many things, including a drink. Now, this didn't bother me because I figured that he would be paying for this stuff, but apparently this was not the case. The bill came and I told Simon and Christine that I was only paying for myself and Christine. Simon asked why was that, and I told him because I didn't invite him. He let out a loud, "Come on now, what?" And Christine asked if I was serious. I told her yes, because I only invited her, didn't I? She then said I was being rude and unwelcoming to Simon after he took the time to drop what he was doing and come join us. But I frankly told her this wasn't what I planned. She got offended and said they're both one, and I should either pay for both of them or not pay at all. I told her this was not fair to both her and I, but she said no, this was unfair to Simon. I asked if he had money to pay, and he shook his head no. I apologized and still stuck to paying for myself and Christine, but she refused to let me, saying I either pay for both or not pay at all. I asked if that is what she really wanted, and she nodded. I said okay then, paid for myself, and left. Clearly, Christine had no money as well, and they had to wait for a friend to pay for them at the restaurant, and Christine was upset about that. She called me and said that I not only disrespected Simon and made him feel unwelcome, but I also bailed on them by only paying for myself and leaving them stuck in a horrible situation begging for a friend to help. She said she's hurt, Simon's hurt, and they expect an apology and the money their friend paid since it's a debt they need to return now. I told her it was her doing for bringing an uninvited person with her, then insisting that I pay for them both or not pay at all. She argued that I was trying to avoid responsibility and I should make it up to them if I care about our relationship, but I said it won't happen because I don't owe them anything. Things got worse between us. Now I'm thinking I might have caused this by not paying for both of them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Stick to your guns. He was unwelcome because he wasn't invited. Who doesn't bring their wallet when they weren't even invited? Even if he was a welcome addition, it's very rude to just expect and then demand that someone pay for your food. These two people are too old for these antics, and both sound like moochers who need to grow up. A relationship doesn't mean that if someone is willing to treat one person that they automatically have to foot the bill for both. Edit. Based on OP's comments, this guy is unemployed and sounds like he only showed up for a free meal, or in an attempt to ensure that his girlfriend and OP couldn't have a private conversation. The nerve of some people. Even when I'm invited, I always bring my wallet and we always end up fighting to pay the bill. I don't know how people can go around feeling and acting like entitled jerks. Not the jerk, OP. They are. Especially at 30 years old. What 30-year-old adult can't pay for his own lunch? He's 30, not 13. This boggles my mind. And he's also got the nerve to be upset and ask someone else to pay for it. And OP's daughter is 24 and still expects mom to pay for her lunch? What? It wasn't really clear to me by the story, but I got the impression mom asked to take daughter out to lunch. So if that's the case, I would expect someone, especially someone who might still be adjusting to a new job and moving and paying off student loans and so on, might not necessarily have funds to go out to lunch at any given moment. But if her mom told her she was taking her out, it would be entirely reasonable to agree to that, knowing she couldn't afford that normally. Bringing Simon along unannounced and uninvited is where things went sideways. Christine doesn't seem to have a sense of social consideration, and obviously Simon sounds completely worthless. Reconsider working here if I want to take a honeymoon? Okay. I had a manager who hated reading emails and would miss important issues and meetings because of it. I even suggested text-to-speech to make it less unpleasant, but he told me off. He spent a lot of time playing golf with clients and was mostly inaccessible. It got to the point where most of the team CC'd me. I was next on the totem pole, so I could grant approvals for stuff like expense reports and help out on projects my manager was supposed to work on. When I was getting married, I requested 3 weeks off for my honeymoon. Everyone knew I was getting married. Manager even congratulated me on the engagement when it happened. I had 5 weeks vacation accumulated and didn't think it would be a big deal, especially since I was requesting it nearly 8 weeks in advance. Then, a vacation request denied email comes in from our time off system. I emailed manager following up, left voicemails, and after a week, he finally replied to an email. Look, we need dedicated people. If you think you can take 3 weeks off for a vacation, you need to reconsider your position here. Keep in mind, my request stated vacation request for honeymoon. I replied with, no consideration needed. My last day will be in 3 weeks. Let me know about transitioning duties. I forwarded this to HR, CCing manager, and HR sets up my exit interview. But HR tells my manager to set up transition for my responsibilities. During my notice period, I even replied all to this email twice, asking about transition plans, since I didn't get any transition plan. I tell my team, they ask manager what to do with my duties, and manager says he'll think about it, but doesn't do anything nor email anything out. 4 weeks later, I get a call from my old boss. Are you planning on coming in this week? Why would I? Because you work for me. Not as of last week. Stop messing around. Get your butt in the office. I told you my last day when you denied my vacation request. How about giving proper notice and transitions? HR asked you to develop a transition plan and to attend my exit interview. It's not my fault you don't read all your emails. I hang up and block his number, but screenshot the call log and send it to the HR contact with an innocent, should I be worried? Old manager still thinks I work for him. Fallout. Things went from bad to worse for my old manager. Apparently, I was doing most of his managerial duties, so he actually had to try and get stuff done himself. He also got into some legal issues. Those client golf outings, he played golf, but not with clients. That made his termination with cause, so no severance for him. I ended up at a competitor with a nice bump in pay. I wanted to start after my honeymoon, but new company really wanted my help on a pitch. I joined for several weeks, reworking about 1/3 of the pitch, and then went on my honeymoon for 3 weeks. They paid me for the entire time off. That garnered a lot of goodwill from both me and my wife. I only left the company because Mrs. and I moved cross-country and they didn't have remote positions back then. I don't have all the details, but I know old manager had to hire lawyers to deal with legal issues related to his dismissal and the expenses. Clarification: this happened in the late 2000s. Mrs. and I are still married. Am I the jerk for not giving my dad's girlfriend my change? I, 17 male, came to visit my dad for the weekend. His girlfriend, Tessa, doesn't live with him, but is here all the time, and she has a kid. We all went out to dinner yesterday and stopped at Walmart after. I found a movie that I wanted, so I bought it and used cash. Tessa's daughter got some candy and gave her mom the change. I didn't think anything of it and figured her mom kept her money. I bought my movie with money I got from working. It's not like my dad gave it to me or it was allowance or anything. When we were leaving, Tessa asked me if she could have my change. I said, "What? No," and looked at my dad. She said, "Not the singles, just the change, because I need quarters for the laundromat." I said, "No, I saved my change. Sorry." I thought that was the end of it. Then later, my dad talked to me while we were outside. He said that I come off as stingy and should have just given Tessa my change. She has to use the laundromat, and it's not even $1 I'd be giving her. I said, "Well, it's kind of weird for her to be asking a kid that's not even her kid for money." He said, "Again, it's not even $1. She's been having a hard time getting quarters." I said, "I have a whole change jar at mom's. I can go get it." He said, "And give it to her?" I said, "No, I'll count it out and she can buy the change from me. I usually cash it in at the bank anyways." He said, "Never mind. I just thought you could give her the change from earlier. Be the bigger person. You're lucky you have it so good and don't have to pay to do laundry. I do my laundry at home, not his house anyways. Today, Tessa kept making comments about how she's glad she taught her daughter to share and not be entitled. I don't have a problem with giving her the 75 cents, if even that, but I feel like then, every time I'm over and buy something or get change, I'll be expected to hand it over to her. Am I the jerk for not giving my dad's girlfriend my quarters? Not the jerk. It's weird for an adult to be asking a kid for money, and even weirder that she's harping on it so much. If your dad is so concerned about her laundry situation, why doesn't he let her do it at his house? OP. Apparently he offered. She said no because she doesn't want to feel like she's taking advantage. So she just takes advantage of you instead? Cool. Not the jerk. I am very embarrassed for Tessa. I mean, they were all right there in the Walmart parking lot. She could have asked a cashier for change for bills when her daughter was paying for her candy. I feel sorry for OP. This is a really weird dynamic. Raised her kid to share and not be entitled? Yet she herself feels entitled enough to get the change from your hard-earned money? She might want to think about that a little more if she can't see the hypocrisy. Not the jerk at all. Dad's girlfriend needs to do some self-reflection. Not the jerk. Your money, your rules. If you feel like giving it to her, good for you, and vice versa. I don't know what your father was talking about when he said, be the bigger person, when in fact, you were standing up for yourself. Your dad's girlfriend shouldn't have to rely on kids to provide for her. She needs to act like an adult. Also very childish and petty of her to make those comments about her kid that were directed towards you. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.